Welcome to Hard Script.
The message came in while I was kneeling on a kitchen floor, replacing a cracked water inlet valve on a dishwasher that had been leaking for weeks. I think we need time apart. Don't overthink it. It's just a pause. The homeowner was standing behind me, asking how much longer it would take. I wiped my hands on a towel, looked at the screen again, and typed one word. Okay. I slid the phone back into my pocket and finished the repair. The machine hummed steady when I turned it on. No leaks. No noise. Problem solved. When I stepped outside into the afternoon light, another message came through. Wait, that's it. I did not answer. Earlier that week, Madison had told me about a new closed development circle she had joined through the art space where she worked. She said it was invite only. Said it was about alignment, clarity, stepping into your higher self. The meetings were held in a renovated loft downtown, candles in the windows, soft music drifting down the stairwell. The man leading it called himself Daniel Reed. Life architect. Transformation coach. I had seen his photo once when she left her laptop open on the kitchen table. Clean haircut. Rolled up sleeves. The kind of smile that looked rehearsed. She said he helped people break through emotional blocks. She said I would not understand because I lived in checklists and invoices. That evening, she had come home later than usual, smelling faintly of incense instead of paint and coffee like she normally did from the gallery. She talked about expansion while standing in the doorway, phone still in her hand. Now, as I drove back to my service van, I noticed something I had missed before. Her location sharing was off. The apartment lease was in her name. Most of the furniture had been hers before we moved in together. My phone buzzed again. She wrote that she was staying at the loft for a while to focus. That it was part of the practice. That I should not make this dramatic. I unlocked the van, set my tool bag inside, and closed the door without responding. I did not drive home right away. Instead, I parked outside a small coffee shop across from the art district and opened my laptop in the van. The service app for my business was still running, invoices waiting to be closed. I finished them first. Routine before reaction. Then I logged into our shared subscriptions. Streaming services. Cloud storage. The grocery delivery account we both used. One by one, I changed the passwords and removed my card information. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. My phone buzzed again. Madison wrote that she had not expected me to be so cold. She said most husbands would fight. She said Daniel believed that resistance was a sign of suppressed fear. I did not respond to that either. Instead, I opened the lease agreement saved in my email. The apartment had always been hers originally. When I moved in, we added my name for convenience. I found the property management portal and requested removal from the contract. The confirmation screen asked for a reason. I selected relocation. 15 minutes after her first message, my part was done. Another text came through. Wait, that's it. I forwarded my number to an automated voicemail service I used for after-hours repair calls. The greeting was simple and professional, explaining that the line was temporarily unavailable. Then I drove to the apartment. Her car was gone. The closet door in the bedroom stood open, half her clothes missing. A suitcase had been taken. On the kitchen counter sat a small stack of self-help books with sticky notes marking pages. Daniel's name was written inside one of them in bold ink, followed by a quote about surrender. I walked through each room slowly, not searching for evidence, just taking inventory. My tools were still in the hallway cabinet. I packed them into 2 heavy cases and carried them down to the van. As I locked the apartment door behind me, my phone vibrated one last time. This time it was not a message from her. It was a social media notification showing a live stream from Daniel Reed's loft. I sat in the driver's seat and watched the live stream without turning on the sound. The camera was set low, angled toward a circle of people sitting on cushions in Daniel's loft. Exposed brick walls. String lights. Candles placed carefully along the windowsill. It looked less like therapy and more like a set. Daniel stood in the center, sleeves rolled up, speaking with his hands. Even muted, his rhythm was obvious. He moved slowly, like he was conducting something invisible. Madison sat near him, not across the room, not on the edge, close enough that their knees almost touched. Her hair was down. She wore the loose sweater she usually saved for weekends at home. She was leaning forward, eyes locked on him the way she used to look at art installations she loved. Focused. Open. At one point he reached out and placed his hand over hers while making a point. It was brief, natural enough to pass as supportive. But she did not pull away. The comments scrolled fast under the video. People praising the energy. Someone wrote that the retreat weekend was life-changing. Another mentioned limited spots for private mentorship sessions. Private mentorship. I closed the app. Back at my workshop, I carried the tool cases inside and set them next to my workbench. The space smelled like metal and cleaning solvent, familiar and solid. I flipped the sign on the door from open to by appointment only. Then I opened my email and drafted a short message to the property management company confirming my move-out date and requesting written acknowledgement of my removal from the lease. I attached a copy of my ID and the original contract. When I hit send, my phone buzzed again. Madison left a voicemail through the automated system. Her voice sounded thinner through the recording. She said Daniel thought space would clarify everything. She said I should trust the process. She said this was temporary. In the background of the message, I could hear music. Soft. Ambient. I did not call back. Instead, I started reorganizing my workbench, clearing off anything that had been pushed aside for too long. The next morning, the property management company replied. They confirmed my removal from the lease effective immediately and requested that I return my copy of the key. I drove to the office, handed it over without explanation, and signed the final document. The woman behind the desk glanced at the form, then at me, and wished me luck in a tone that suggested she had seen this before. By the time I left, my name was no longer attached to that address. Madison's messages kept coming through the voicemail system. She said I was acting extreme. She said Daniel encouraged her to create space, not destroy her marriage. She insisted this was about growth, not replacement. In the afternoon, one of my longtime clients mentioned seeing a photo online from the development circle. He said the coach looked intense. Said my wife seemed really invested. He asked if I had joined too. I told him I was busy with appliances. Later, curiosity pulled me back to Daniel's public page. He had posted a polished photo from the loft. The caption spoke about shedding old identities and stepping into alignment. In the background, Madison was standing near him, holding a notebook to her chest. His hand rested lightly at her waist. The comments were full of praise. Someone wrote that Real partners support evolution. Another thanked him for helping her leave, limiting relationships. I closed the app and went back to work. That evening, I rented a small studio space attached to my workshop. It had a narrow bathroom and a fold-out couch, nothing more. I moved a few essentials in and set up a coffee maker on a metal shelf. As I finished, my phone rang through the automated line again. This time Madison's voice sounded different, less certain. She said the lease office had called her about my removal. She said she had not expected paperwork. She asked if I was planning to come back after the pause. I did not respond. Instead, I locked the workshop for the night and turned off the lights, leaving the studio in quiet shadow. A week passed before I saw her in person again. She came to the workshop in the evening, just as I was finishing a repair on a commercial refrigerator. The air inside smelled like coolant and steel. She stood in the doorway, looking around at the tools, the metal shelves, the fold-out couch against the wall. She said she did not expect me to move this fast. I wiped my hands and leaned against the workbench, giving her space to speak. She told me Daniel had suggested a deeper immersion, a temporary stay at the loft for what he called intensive recalibration. She said it was about commitment to the process, about breaking old patterns. She insisted there was nothing inappropriate, just conversations, exercises, vulnerability. As she talked, her phone lit up on the table between us. A message preview flashed from Daniel. It read that she had shown courage and that discomfort meant transformation was working. She turned the phone over slowly. She said she thought I would ask her to come home, that I would demand she choose. She said my silence made her question whether I ever cared enough to fight. I told her the apartment was hers. She had asked for a pause. I respected that. She walked further into the workshop, glancing at the narrow bed in the corner. She said this was not how she pictured our marriage, that she imagined growth together, not separation. I picked up a wrench and set it back down, keeping my movement steady. She said Daniel believed relationships sometimes had to dissolve to be rebuilt on higher ground. She asked if I was willing to rebuild. I did not answer her question. Instead, I handed her a small envelope containing the official lease confirmation and proof that my name had been removed. Clean. Final. She looked at the papers, then back at me. For the first time, Her voice did not sound inspired. It sounded uncertain. 2 days later, I received a call from a number I did not recognize. It was not Madison. It was a man introducing himself as Daniel Reed. His tone was calm, measured, the same rhythm I had seen in the live streams. He said he understood there had been tension between Madison and me. He said his role was to facilitate growth, not division. He suggested that sometimes partners misinterpret personal evolution as betrayal. I let him finish. He asked if I would consider attending one of the sessions to gain perspective. He said real strength came from facing discomfort together. I told him my schedule was full. He paused, then said Madison felt unsupported, that she had shared how practical and emotionally distant I could be. He implied that her seeking guidance elsewhere was a symptom, not a cause. I did not argue. I simply said that whatever guidance she was seeking did not require my name on her lease. There was a brief silence on the line. Then he wished me clarity and ended the call. That evening, Madison showed up again. This time she looked tired. Not inspired. Not defensive. Tired. She said Daniel thought I was reacting from ego. She said he believed that if I truly loved her, I would trust her path. She repeated his phrases almost word for word, but they landed differently now. She told me some of the women in the circle had moved into short-term housing near the loft. That immersion created breakthroughs. She said Daniel had offered her a discounted mentorship package since she helped promote the program at the art space. I asked her if the mentorship required her to sleep there. She hesitated before answering that it was easier logistically. Her phone vibrated again. She did not check it. She said she had imagined I would show up at the loft, demand answers, maybe even confront him. She admitted part of her expected drama. Instead, I handed her a printed notice from my attorney requesting formal separation proceedings. Her hands shook slightly as she took it. For the first time, the language of growth did not seem to fit the room. The shift happened quietly. Madison stopped talking about breakthroughs and started talking about logistics. She came by the workshop one afternoon with dark circles under her eyes and a folder tucked under her arm. She said the Art Space Board had called a meeting. Some donors had raised concerns about her involvement with Daniel's program. They questioned whether promoting his retreats through the gallery blurred professional lines. She said Daniel told her that criticism was resistance from people who feared change. He encouraged her to lean in, not pull back. As she spoke, her phone lit up on the workbench again. A message preview from Daniel asked if she was fully committed or still split between timelines. She locked the screen without reading it aloud. Madison admitted that living at the loft felt different than she imagined. She said the intensive immersion included shared meals, late-night conversations, and private coaching sessions behind a closed office door. She said the lines between mentor and partner had become unclear, but she insisted it was all part of the transformation process. I listened while tightening a loose hinge on a dryer door. She said some of the women in the circle had left abruptly. That one of them claimed Daniel pressured her into signing long-term contracts. Another accused him of manipulating personal stories for marketing. Madison's voice lost its rehearsed rhythm. She said she felt exposed, not enlightened. Exposed. She looked around the workshop at the metal shelves and stacked appliances waiting for repair. She said it suddenly felt solid in here. Predictable. I handed her a copy of the official separation filing my attorney had submitted that morning. She stared at the document for a long time. Then she asked if this was really happening. I told her I do not pause contracts. I close them or I renew them. She did not argue. She just stood there, as if realizing that while she was chasing expansion, I had already sealed the exit. The next time she came, she was carrying a small suitcase. She set it down just inside the workshop door and did not move further. The wheels left faint lines in the dust on the concrete floor. She said Daniel had asked her to sign a longer mentorship agreement, a year-long commitment with tiered access, private retreats, and exclusivity clauses. She said when she hesitated, his tone shifted. He reminded her that transformation required sacrifice, and that doubt was proof she was still attached to old structures. She told him she needed space to think. He replied that space was regression. Madison looked at me and admitted she had packed her things from the loft. Not everything, just enough to leave without announcing it. She said she felt watched there, not supported. That conversations once framed as healing started to sound like leverage. Her phone vibrated in her hand again. She did not check it this time. She said Daniel had hinted that if she stepped back now, she would lose access to the circle and the community she had invested in. He warned that growth does not wait for the hesitant. I walked past her to grab a rag and wiped down the workbench slowly. She asked if she could stay in the studio space for a few days, just until she figured out her next move. She said she did not want to go back to the apartment alone. I told her the lease was in her name. She nodded, like she expected that answer but hoped for a different one. She said she misunderstood what a pause meant, that she thought I would hold the door open while she explored. I picked up the separation documents from the desk and placed them beside her suitcase. She looked down at the papers and then at the narrow fold-out couch in the corner. For the first time, there were no borrowed phrases, no references to alignment or timelines, just silence. She did not take the suitcase back with her that night. Instead, she left it by the door and walked out without another word. I did not stop her. The next morning, my voicemail was full. Not from Madison, from unknown numbers. Some were women's voices asking about appliance repairs, but a few mentioned Daniel's name directly. One woman said she had found my number through public records tied to Madison. She asked if I knew anything about refunds from a retreat that had been canceled without explanation. By afternoon, Daniel's social media accounts were quiet. No new posts. No live streams. The polished photos were still there, but comments had shifted. Some people were asking about missing deposits. Others were sharing vague complaints about broken promises. Madison showed up again in the evening, this time without the rehearsed calm. She said the Art Space Board had suspended her pending review. They cited conflict of interest and reputational risk. She said Daniel stopped answering her calls after she told him she was stepping back. The loft door had been locked when she went to retrieve the rest of her belongings. She stood in the middle of the workshop and looked smaller than ever. She admitted that what she called growth had become dependency, that she mistook attention for depth. She said when she texted that it was just a pause, she believed she was in control. She thought she could step away from our marriage, test something else, and return if it did not work. She asked if there was any version of this where we start over. I did not raise my voice. I did not list what I knew. I simply told her that when she chose a pause, I chose an ending. Her eyes filled, but she did not cry. Outside, a delivery truck pulled up, and the sound of its engine filled the space between us. For the first time, she had nowhere else to redirect her next step. The final meeting took place in a plain conference room at my attorney's office, nothing like the candlelit loft Madison once described as transformative. There were no cushions on the floor, no soft music, just a rectangular table, legal pads, and two pens placed neatly in front of us. Madison arrived alone. She wore simple clothes, no flowing fabrics, no symbolic jewelry. Her phone stayed face down on the table the entire time. It did not light up once. My attorney reviewed the terms of the separation. The apartment would remain hers. I had already removed my name. My business and workshop were solely mine. Shared accounts had been closed. There was nothing left to untangle. Madison listened quietly. She did not interrupt. When asked if she agreed to the terms, she said yes without hesitation. After the paperwork was signed, she remained seated for a moment longer. She said she used to believe growth required tearing everything down. That pauses were harmless, that doors would stay open out of loyalty. She admitted she confused my steadiness for something that would always wait. I did not debate her words. I told her I repair things that can be fixed. When the structure itself is replaced, I install something new. I do not stand in an empty frame hoping the old parts return. She nodded slowly. She asked if I hated her. I told her I did not. I simply stepped aside when she chose another direction. We stood at the same time. No dramatic goodbye. No raised voices. Just the quiet sound of chairs sliding back against the floor. Outside, the air was clear. I walked toward my truck, keys already in hand. My phone remained silent in my pocket. There was no pause anymore. There was only forward.